Hey, everybody, welcome back to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
We're getting toward the end of 1982, selecting our final songs out of 20 total songs we're picking for the playlist. Our favorite albums, Cheryl has already selected hers. I'll be talking about mine this week. Mike, Cheryl's husband, will join us with his favorite album and song in our final episode of 1982.
If he ever picks something.
Oh my gosh, I've been bugging Cheryl. It's like, find out what Mike's song is going to be. So I finally gave him a little push because my favorite album had come down to two, and I was going to have a shootout here over these final couple of weeks. But I said, hey, if Mike wants either one of these for his top album, I'll just choose the other. And lo and behold, it worked. Mike chose one of those two albums. So I didn't end up having the shootout.
Well, I don't know, actually. I think he's having second thoughts, though.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Oh, of course he is. Of course
he said he listened to the other album again, and he was like, I don't know. But I don't know if he has anything else that has taken the lead, so maybe he will choose it by default.
What's the other album? Imperial Bedroom?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if he has another album. I think he's just decided that the one that you didn't choose might not be the one.
Okay. I know a while back he had floated out that one of his possible songs might be a track off Imperial Bedroom.
Yeah. A song might be, yes. And that could be an album for him even, possibly.
Yeah,
I think that we all had similar thoughts as far as what our list was for album of the year. And there's a few that were on there that we were thinking about that are also on his list. So he'll choose one of the albums that we maybe considered, I think.
Well, if he were to choose Imperial Bedroom, do you want to hear my hot take on Imperial? Okay, Imperial Bedroom is Elvis Costello's album from 1982.
Yeah.
And the prior year, he'd released two albums, Trust, which is one that I've only recently listened to for the first time, and then Almost Blue, which was his country covers album, which was not particularly well reviewed or well liked at the time. I think it's more appreciated now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 8 years before, the old country movement, so he was way ahead of the curve as far as that's concerned. But 82, the Imperial Bedroom album comes out, and it's kind of a departure for Elvis Costello and the Attractions because of the way the album's produced. But it didn't start out that way. It started out sounding like the albums that he'd already been putting out, kind of raw, stripped back. So when I first started listening to the record, the 2-disc Rhino issue on CD, which has a lot of the demos and outtakes and ephemera on the second disc, and actually listened to the second disc a lot more than the actual album itself. So I listened to the demos and outtakes first, and then I came to find that I preferred the demos. I thought the songs were strong enough to hold up just with the stripped down sound and didn't need all the production finery and all the throwback 60s production tricks that Jeff Emmerich brought to the table. The album was pretty universally praised. I'm certainly probably in the minority here, but I liked a lot of those songs better in the old, high energy Attractions arrangements without the production tricks.
Yeah, I mean, it has a more sophisticated sound to it. I think it kind of falls into that category with like Joe Jackson, Night and Day, Donald Fagen, The Nightfly, other albums from this year.
Love The Nightfly, but again, Joe Jackson, and I'm only just starting to listen to Night and Day, but at first listen, it's like, it's thin sounding to me. It just doesn't have that punch that the Joe Jackson Band albums did.
It's a much different sound and different production sound on that album too.
Yeah.
But I think that what they both of those albums to me have is kind of a slick, more produced, not the whole. Elvis Costello's is weird because part of it is like that, but not all of it is like that. Like it just depends on the song, but there definitely is a feel to it that just feels more mature. I've never been a huge fan of Imperial Bedroom like most Elvis Costello fans are, I feel like.
It's good, but it's certainly not one of my favorite records of his.
There's particular songs I really like on that album, but the album as a whole, it's never been one of my favorites. And I actually much prefer Blood and Chocolate that came out like in 86. I really like that album.
And that's getting back to their older sound.
Yeah.
And I think Nick Lowe even produced that, didn't he?
Yeah. Maybe I'm better off listening to the second disc because I think the songs are good. It might be the production,
Yeah.
and that's what was turning me off a little bit, and I just wasn't making that connection.
That album in particular, but a lot of his albums, you got to listen to them a lot. There's just so much going on lyrically.
Yes.
I mean, you got to listen to his songs several times before you pick up on all the cool stuff that he's doing.
Yep, I agree. Now, Night and Day, that album I think is great. And it's another one that it took me a while to get into, but it's grown on me.
And that's another potential Mike song.
Yeah.
We had Steppin' Out on our lists, and that was going to be one of our songs, but it just fell back.
Yeah, that's on
off
Mike's
the
list
list.
as
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, going off on a little cul-de-sac here, one thing I do want to talk about this week, and we touched on it in our last episode when we talked about Dexy's Midnight Runners. Was that our last episode, or was that 2 ago?
That was a few ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the one-hit wonders of our playlist era, Dexy's being one of them. And I wanted to single out groups and artists that are one-hit wonders in the United States, but have deeper, rewarding catalogs that, a lot more people should be aware of if they are not. So I researched this, and I selected 11 artists that are primarily known for one hit song, one top 40 hit song in the United States, but have way more music that people should be familiar with. And then Cheryl and I have chosen 4 songs from these artists that we're going to put forward, 2 each. I'll just start at the top of the list. This one was maybe the most surprising for me, that he's a one-hit wonder. I would have thought he had a few hits, and that's Beck. So Beck's one hit was Loser off the Mellow Gold album, 1994, first major label album on Geffen, DGC. He'd put out some indie records before that. A lot of his catalog I've not yet really listened to. What I have, I enjoy quite a bit. When we were talking about Beck, I think each of our favorite song is the same song. I Think I'm in Love off the Information album.
Yeah.
How is that not a hit?
Yeah, I know.
That's such a great song.
And I can't believe that Odelay was so popular. There's nothing off of that.
That's the other thing. I thought there was at least 2 hits off that album.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 turntables and a microphone.
Yeah.
That wasn't a top 40 hit? You heard that all the
Devil's
time.
Haircut? That was popular.
Devil's Haircut? Sure. Yeah, I was shocked to discover that these were not top 40 hits at the time. But that album was quite popular.
Yeah.
Those songs got played a lot on alternative radio and MTV.
At this point in music, I don't really know what is a hit and what isn't.
It gets harder to figure, doesn't it?
And starting in the 90s, I'm not really listening to popular radio. So there's songs that I know, like from Beck, that I would think were hits just because I know them. So I figured that I must know them because I haven't really listened to Beck that much. I haven't listened to his albums very much. So I've heard these songs somewhere. So I don't have a very good sense, I guess, as far as like what is considered a hit once you hit the 90s, as far as like chart placement,
Yeah, it gets harder. It gets harder. Here's another funny thing about Beck and me. So I've managed to accumulate most of his catalog on CD, although I've listened to very little of it at
which
this
is
point.
Pretty vast. He's got a large catalog.
I think there's only 2 studio albums I don't have on CD. And the Beck that I've listened to the most is the non-commercial indie avant-garde stuff that he put out, like Stereopathetic Soul Manure. I've listened to that quite a bit. There's just wild stuff on there.
Yeah, I don't know that at all.
Totally non-commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So he put out that, and One Foot in the Grave came out on K Records in Olympia before he had his breakthrough and got his major label deal. And then after Mellow Gold and Odelay, he kind of had a deal with Geffen that would allow him to put out these more non-commercial records too.
Mm-hmm.
So just right after he hits it big with those 2, he puts out an album called Mutations, which Geffen actually, I believe it came out with their imprint on it. I think his intention was these records would come out on other like small labels, indie labels, but Geffen went ahead and put this record out. I think they realized the error of their ways and didn't do it anymore. But he did put out a really cool record called Midnight Vultures, which took a lot of people by surprise. So there's so many different influences coming in with him.
Yeah, he does a lot of different styles because right after that album too, Sea Change was like a Gordon Lightfoot album or something. It was much
Yeah.
different, more like singer songwriter.
But Midnight Vultures is like sexy R&B,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really good. It is a really good record. So a really rewarding catalog. And I know a couple records later he won a Grammy. Wasn't that the one where Kanye West like
Oh, was that him when
did
Kanye went
something?
up and said
Yeah,
that?
he did it to Taylor Swift and he did it to Beck. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, that's right.
Kanye West probably had no idea who he even was, and
No.
Beck, like a lot of musicians, was a huge fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Kanye's crazy, and he's this reviled character now, but I mean, folks, he's a brilliant musician, really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Beck has won Grammys, but he hasn't had top 40 hits outside of a loser. Go figure. That was a bit of a surprise to discover. The other one that I was surprised about that they only had one hit was Devo, because I could have sworn that their cover of Working in a Coal Mine was a top 40 hit. I certainly remember hearing that on the
Yeah.
radio
Yeah. Me
when that
too.
came out.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
Well, or
just
like
because you're,
Uncontrollable Urge or Girl You Want or
yeah,
Beautiful World. That was
their
came out
their
in
cover of
81 or 82.
Satisfaction,
Yeah.
all of these could have been hits. They're all certainly of the caliber, but only Whip It
When you
for
say
Devo.
hit, do you mean top 40 or where are you drawing
Yes,
the line? Okay.
top 40,
Mm-hmm.
top 40.
Yeah, that does surprise me that none of those other songs were within the top 40.
So Devo, I've listened to very little of their catalog, but their first album is absolutely essential.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant record. One of the best albums to come out in 78? That came out.
Yeah.
What's your take on Devo? Have you listened to much Devo?
I haven't listened to them much. I like all the songs I know,
Yeah.
which is probably what would be considered their greatest hits. They do have a collection. I mean, I guess they're not hits, but they have like a collection that I know, most of the songs on that album, and I like them all. I think that they're incredibly creative and talented.
And remarkably prescient.
Yes.
I mean, the whole concept behind the name of the band, I think they hit that right on the head.
The de-evolution.
The whole theory of de-evolution.
Yeah.
If you're following the election season,
Mm-hmm.
then it just gets hammered home.
Well,
day
and
after
they
day.
created a whole world around themselves, and I think that there's bands that have done that, but most of the bands that have done that, like the Residents or bands like that, they're not listenable. Like they don't have music that you can really just get into if you're not getting into the whole concept.
I've never listened to the Residents. Never listened to the Residents.
It's very challenging.
I imagine.
But I mean, that's what I think that Devo is cool because, if you want to like really delve deep into their whole shtick and everything they're doing and their whole world they're creating, it's really interesting and very creative. Or you can just listen to their music, and I think they have really cool songs. So they work on both levels.
All I've really listened to is the first album, and then they put out this live album on Enigma that I think came out end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. That's about the extent of it.
Well, I listened to New Traditionalists in 81 because it was an album from 81. It's not a great album, but I really like the song Beautiful World, which I remember hearing and seeing the video, back in the 80s. I think Freedom of Choice is a good album. And that's the album that has Whip It. But there's other songs that I like on the album. None of them are as good as their first album, though.
All right, going back between Beck and Devo on the alphabetical list, Sean Colvin. Now, Sean Colvin had kind of a left field hit in the late 90s with a song called Sonny Came Home.
Yeah.
It was one of those hit songs that would have, if you listened to radio, you would have been hearing that on the
Mountain.
The Mountain, right. So that crossed over from adult alternative. But it's an interesting song. It's somewhat mysterious, somewhat vague, but the theme of it seems to be a woman who's ending a relationship or turning a corner in her life and just trying to erase her past and may or may not have set fire to the family home. So there's this dark undercurrent, but it's kind of the lyrics kind of vague. She's a great artist. She's a wonderful singer, wonderful guitar player, really good guitar. Saw her open for Jason Isbell a couple of years ago here in Portland. Just her in an acoustic. Excellent guitar player.
She's a storyteller.
Right. Great songwriter, beautiful voice. We just upgraded our stereo. What was the first thing that I played on the new speakers, the new stereo to test them out? It was a Sean Colvin record because her records sound fantastic. They're beautifully recorded, beautifully played. She works with top-notch session guys, real high-quality music. And so the first thing I listened to was her Fat City album, which came out in 1992. Sounds great.
The only album I really remember of hers is her first album, the one that had Steady
Steady
On
On?
and Diamonds in the
Right.
Rough. Yeah.
And she was, I want to say she was like 33 years old when that first debut album
Yeah.
came out. So she'd had a whole life before that. She'd been, a gigging musician for years, kind of locally singing in bars and clubs. She's from Vermilion, South Dakota, went to college in Carbondale, Illinois, Southern Illinois University. So she started playing bars and clubs there. And then she got hooked on drugs and was alcoholic and had to beat that. And so she'd lived a life, before she actually started putting out major label records. And that first debut album in 89, she was in her early 30s already, and it got rave reviews. And the ones that followed were Fat City in 92, and then A Few Small Repairs was the record that had Sonny Came Home on it. I think that came out in 97.
96.
I want to say. Yeah, 96, 97. She also did a covers album called Cover Girl. And she's actually recorded tons of cover songs over the years. And she's one of these artists that shows up on all these different like tribute albums and soundtracks. And so if you want to collect Sean Colvin, it's kind of a chore because it's all over the place. But really great artist, really good, and rewarding catalog worth exploring. Another thing I was going to say is that her producer on a lot of these really good records is John Leventhal, who is Roseanne Cash's husband and producer, also an outstanding guitarist, multi-instrumentalist. So whenever you see his name on a record, usually a stamp of quality. You're going to get a quality recording with top-flight musicianship on it. So that's Sean Colvin. Now, Dexy's Midnight Runners, we don't need to spend too much time on because we've already put Come On Eileen on the playlist. And we talked about their first big hit, a number one hit in England, Gino, which was their first single. Didn't do anything here, but that's my choice for one of my songs from these one-hit wonder artists. I absolutely love that song. I just really dig it. Off the first record, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels.
Yeah, such a cool R&B rave up. It is so different from Come On Eileen. If people heard that song, they might not even know it was the same band. They're definitely a one-hit wonder in the US, but I think we've already talked a lot about how their first album, To Rye, and actually their album that came out after that was a total flop.
Don't Stand Me Down.
Yes, all have redeeming qualities to them and are worth listening to.
Yeah, for sure. Next artist was one that I discovered pretty early on because I was living in the South at the time when their first record came out on an independent label in 1995. They're from North Carolina. It's the Ben Folds Five. And Cheryl, you've chosen a Ben Folds Five song from their third album, which came out in the late 90s, an authorized biography of Reinhold Messner. And the song is Narcolepsy.
And I could have chose other songs from Ben Folds 5 too, because
how do you choose?
I know.
How do you choose?
Whatever and Ever is a great album. The first album is great. They're amazing.
Yeah.
This album in particular, and the song that I chose, Narcolepsy, I actually really, really like this album, and it is very different from their other two, and it comes from a much darker place. I found a bunch of live performances they did when they were touring with a full orchestra.
These are great albums. They're even better live. They're a fabulous live act.
They're incredible live. They're a trio. Yeah, even though it's Ben Folds Five, it's just a trio. So it's three guys, and they're just incredible musicians, and they all sing. They're amazing. And I think that this album really just kind of brought them up to a whole other level. What was even their hit? Brick?
Yeah, Brick off their second record.
Okay.
She's a brick and I'm drowning slow. Yeah, that was their one hit.
I'm actually kind of surprised they even had any hits because they seem pretty underground to me. They're more like a college radio band.
They seem underground, but in a way they're a throwback to like the melodic 70s, kind of like Elton John and Billy
Yes.
Joel. I mean, those are kind of the predecessors. Ben Folds is a keyboard player like those guys, and he's got the same level of chops. I mean, he is a ridiculously talented musician,
Yes.
which I don't know if people realize this. He didn't start out as a keyboard player. He was a session drummer
Oh.
before switching to keyboard. And he's got this just ridiculous chops. He can play anything. Bebop, jazz, classical. He's put out classical pieces. He's worked with symphony orchestras.
Mm-hmm.
And just an incredible gift for melody and a great lyricist, too.
Yeah, he's extremely talented. All of them are. I mean, anytime you're in a trio, unless you're just playing like punk or something just really straightforward, you have to be a top-notch musician to be able to pull off a trio.
Yeah.
And they don't have a guitar. It's bass, piano, and drums.
No guitar. Piano, bass, drum. And the bass is super amplified and distorted a lot of the time. So they get a lot of interesting sounds overdriving the bass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Darren Jesse and Robert Sledge are the other two guys. Both of them really good musicians as well.
Yeah.
So a piano trio with bass and drums that kicks up a hell of a racket. I mean, they rock live.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very energetic, kind of wicked sense of humor, very profane guy. I remember seeing them live the first time. Every third word out of his mouth is the F word. And I mean, he just pounds the piano and he does all these Jerry Lee Lewis tricks. He's like jumping up and down on the piano. And
yes.
I mean,
yes, very active,
incredible showman.
Yeah.
And he just makes up songs on the spot, and they're usually filthy. They're incredible on stage.
Well, and a lot of their songs it's very storyteller, but from like the underdog angle is where a lot of his writing is coming from.
Revenge of the Nerds is a theme to a lot of his songs.
Yes.
Just put on their second record, Whatever Never Amen. One Psalm Dwarf and 10,000
One Angry Dwarf and 200 Solemn Faces.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the story of it. That same theme is in a lot of his lyrics, though. It's about this guy who was a nerd and got picked on in school, and now he's getting his revenge because I'm a rock star. Screw all you guys,
Yep.
But what a talent. What a great talent. Not only the Ben Folds Fives record, so they split. He put out a bunch of solo stuff. Then they got together and put out another really good record, Sound of the Life of the Mind. But if you're just getting into Ben Folds, probably the best thing to do is to get a couple of live albums. Get the Ben Folds Live. He's got like a 2-disc live album of him as solo. And then there's also a Ben Folds 5 live album
and there's
as well.
the West 54th live. There's several live.
Right.
And there's a lot of live video too that's available, like commercially made live videos and they're so fun to watch. They're really a great visual band.
Anything he's put his name on is worth owning. It's all really, really good. All right, next on the list, Nick Lowe. Now, we didn't choose a song from Nick Lowe, but again, very consistent catalog of high-quality music. Starting in, 78, I guess?
Yeah.
With Pure Pop for Now people.
Jesus of Cool. Pure Pop for Now
If you're in the UK, Jesus of Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Nick Lowe album? The only one I have is Labor of Lust, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah, I like both. I like Jesus of Cool and Labor of Lust. I like the Rockpile album a lot.
Oh, God. Talk about great musicians. Holy smokes.
Nick
what
Lowe,
a great band.
Dave Edmunds. Honestly, I mostly listen to his best of. Basher, the best of. Every song on that is great. He's very similar to Elvis Costello. They work together a lot, but he does the same sort of thing where he's done country albums. He's done different styles. He's done like the loungy sort of singer albums. And one of my favorite albums of his is The Impossible Bird that came out in 94. Really great album. It's kind of a little bit countrified, but it's got kind of like more of a soulfulness. That's probably his best album, honestly. He just put out an album just a couple months ago that's really good. For a long time, he was doing that torchy, loungy stuff, and he's kind of gone back to more of his older stuff now, but he's so consistent. He's consistently good, but there's not one thing he's done that stands out as being like great. He has great songs, but he's just consistent. I don't think
Cruel to Be Kind, by the way, is the hit. Cruel to Be Kind was the only top 40 hit for him, and that was early on. I also like that he unashamedly went gray. He went with the silver
Yes.
fox look and never looked back.
And quite early, actually, he did,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
still in the
Well, he
80s. Yeah.
looks good. Looks
Yeah, he
good on him.
does. Yeah. Hmm.
All right, next on the list, and I'm picking a song for this group, Mott the Hoople. Now, their one hit in the United States was All the Young Dudes. And I think a lot of people know the story of that song. David Bowie was a big fan of the group. He'd heard they were falling on hard times. They were going to break up. And he's like, no, you can't. You can't. Let me get it. Let me get. And David Bowie was one of the hottest things going. Everything he was touching was turned to gold at this point. So he gives them this song, All the Young Dudes. It certainly would have it would have been a big hit in his own heads. They'd already turned down a couple of songs that he'd offered, including Suffragette City, which
Oh, I
ended
could
up
see
on an
them doing
album.
that song. Yeah.
Sure.
Hmm.
I don't think Ian Hunter felt comfortable singing that lyric.
Singing Wham
But
Bam Thank You Ma'am.
I don't know. Mott the Hoople was a little more, they had the glam trappings and the funny outfits and stuff, but they were pretty meat and
They seem
potatoes.
like dudes.
Very dudes,
Yeah.
all the
All
young
the young
dudes.
dudes.
But I've really, really grown to love this band. And, I have this list of stuff when I go into a record store. I look for I don't know, it's a list of about 10 different artists, and they're on it because a lot of their early albums are hard to find on CDs. Their earliest records came out on Atlantic in the United States and Island Records in the UK. And then once Bowie got on board and his main man management, they got a new deal with CBS. So they put out a record on Columbia. And that was the All the Young Dudes album. So that was their first record on Columbia. But the ones they put out before that, self-titled, Wildlife, Mad Shadows, and Brain Capers. Brain Capers is the one I've been looking for forever, it seems. It just never pops up. The CD never pops up. I don't know why that is. It's not like, if you look at them on Discogs, it's not like super expensive.
That's the one that
But
gets the highest reviews, I think, though, of
I
their.
know,
Yeah.
and it's great. I love it.
Hmm.
I've listened to it on Apple Music. I just love the sound of those Island ear. It's just thick, heavy bottom end to them. Just love the way they were recorded. And the guy that was producing them was Guy Stevens, who would later produce The Clash's London Calling. That was like his last great claim to fame. He died young. He was very alcoholic and died just a few years after that Clash album came out. But he was just kind of this weird, crazy madman character. But you see his name on stuff, and I just love the sound of the bands that he worked with. Very heavy bottom end to it. And Mott just had this thick, chunky sound that I just really dig. And Brain Caper starts off with this heavy track called Death May Be Your Santa Claus, which I think is one of the all-time classic song titles. But it's just, it rocks like a mother. If you've never heard Thunderbuck Ram off Mad Shadows, that's a great heavy track too. So the whole idea with Mott, and these guys kind of came from the sticks in the Midlands in England, Herefordshire. They wanted to combine the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. So kind of the groove of the Stones and the lyricism of Bob Dylan, and Ian Hunter, the lead singer, who, if you're going to design a rock star in a factory,
Hmm.
I mean, his look is just one of the all-time great looks for a rock band frontman, with the
He always has
long
shades.
corkscrew hair, the
Yeah.
perma shades.
Yeah. He's
They're all
like a
like these.
cooler version of Jeff Lynne in that way, like his hair.
Yes,
He's got the big
love
hair,
that.
the shades.
I'm pretty sure Scott McCoy of Young Fresh Fellows kind of patterned his look a little bit off Ian Hunter too.
Mm-hmm.
But brilliant lyricist. His singing style is very similar to Bob Dylan, where it's more speak singing a lot of the time, but just a passionate vocalist. He's known as a great chronicler of the rock and roll lifestyle and the ups and downs of being in a touring
He's one of
band.
the musicians early on who wrote an autobiography.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of books out about bands since the 60s or whatever, but very few were autobiographies back then.
Yeah, he let you in to see all that was going on behind the scenes. So the song that I'm choosing is off the Mott LP, which was the follow-up record to All the Young Dudes. I know I've spun that once a long time ago, and like a lot of people, I was kind of disappointed with the sound of the record, especially coming off those great heavy early island albums. And again, Bowie gets a bad rap for his production style. It's just kind of thin sounding. The same criticism came with the Iggy Pop
Yeah.
album Raw Power. The same, maybe less so with the Transformer Lou Reed. I think they got that a little better. But Bowie's albums in the early set weren't known for having a lot of bottom end to them. They're kind of trebly, and Mott I think is best served by a heavy bottom end. But the follow-up record, Mott, maybe their best album, start to finish. And it was hard to choose one song. I initially was going to go with the lead track, All the Way from Memphis, which surprisingly wasn't a top 40 hit. It got a lot of radio play. It got a lot of play on FM in the United States, but didn't make the top 40. But the last song on the record is called I Wish I Was Your Mother. And it's just a funny idea for a song. He so wants to better understand his lady that he wishes he could go back and be her parent so he could observe her as a child. It's just kind of, nowadays it sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But at the time it was clever. But it's just a beautiful arrangement with the mandolin. It's kind of a little bit of an alternative country sound to it. Very lyrical. Just a beautiful way to close that record. And that's my second choice for the one-hit wonder
I've never been able to get on
deep dive
on the Mott the Hoople train.
They're a little roots. You're not as big a fan as the rootsy.
No, I don't like.
Yeah.
When it comes to kind of like that sloppy, just sort of jam, kind of like rootsy. Even when you bring in the Stones and Dylan, those two things usually are turnoffs for me right away. and then I have tried. I've listened to all their earlier albums. Everything up to Mott.
You heard it here, folks, on a music podcast. Cheryl doesn't like the Rolling Stones and doesn't like Bob Dylan.
I shouldn't say. I actually do like the 60s Stones, and I do like 60s Dylan, but I don't have the patience for Dylan is my problem with that, because there's just such a vast catalog and it just goes in so many different ways that I just don't have it in me to follow.
Yeah, I'm slowly starting to take some of the, a really good record by Dylan that I just listened to in the last year or two is Desire, the album that came out after Blood on the Tracks. That's a good one.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that. I love Highway 61. I love Blood on the Tracks. I've listened to the earlier
Bring It All Back Home.
Bring It All Back Home is great.
Yeah.
I like Blonde on Blonde, but I don't
like that nearly as much as the other two that preceded it.
Yeah. No, I know you don't. And the Stones, I don't know what it is. It's boring. I find them to be boring. And I think Sticky Fingers is almost a perfect album. Like, I do think that is a great album. I think it's their best album. And I like their 60s stuff, but I find them to be way less interesting than so many other bands that were coming out at that time. I think they have great songs. Don't get me wrong. Clearly, I think Sympathy for the Devil is a masterpiece. Like songs, I think they have great songs, but I'm a Hot Rocks fan. That to me is the best way to listen to the Stones.
Well, you're also not a big blues fan.
No, I'm not. And that is a big piece of it right there.
Yeah.
Yes, which is also why I don't really like the Faces or.
Oh, yeah. My goodness. All right, now I'm going to skip again because I gave you my hot take on Dylan. I've said this for a long time. I think Bringing It All Back Home and Highway 61 Revisited are two of the greatest rock and roll albums ever released by anybody. But
I agree.
Blonde on Blonde is the one that a lot of people point to. When you're picking Dylan's best albums, that's almost always number one on the list. And I disagree strongly. I don't think it holds a candle to the two albums that came out before it. And my main quibble is with the vocals. That's the thing about Bob Dylan. He's not in the studio trying to get the best takes. He's just knocking them out, and that'll do. On to the next one. And it just so happens he got great vocal takes on those two albums before. Blonde on Blonde, Bob Johnston should have tied him to the chair and said, "Nah, Bob, we're going to do this again until you get a better vocal on it." Some of those vocals are just
But I think the songs are good. I like all the songs on the album. Although I do find it annoying that Rainy Day Women number 12 and 35 is like one of his most radio popular
Right.
songs because it's just
Yeah.
so silly and annoying.
You know what one of my favorite songs on that record is? It's just the straight blues song that he isn't that the second track on side one? Can't even remember the
Pledging my
name of it.
time.
Yeah, Pledging My Time. I love that. He's a great blues singer, really is. That's not going to be in the top 150 Bob Dylan songs for most people.
No,
You know.
there are songs. I mean, many song Visions of Johanna, I Want You, Stuck Inside a Mobile, Leopard Skill
Visions of
Pill
Johanna.
Box Hat,
The
Just Like a Woman.
the Visions of Johanna may be his greatest song, but I don't like the version that's on Blood on Blood. There's a live version on the Biograph set that smokes that. It's so much better,
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah. Anyway, that's my hot take. But I wanted to skip because I think Cheryl and I are in agreement on this. Lou Reed is another one who gets a lot of slack from critics. I mean, he's put out a lot of substandard material over his career. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
But now, not to say that he isn't a great artist. I mean, he is, just for the Velvet Underground stuff alone, he's major.
He's legendary, yes.
And the Transformer album is a really good album.
Mm-hmm.
But
I agree.
There's a lot of other stuff that he's put out. It's just kind of, and, you know, for someone who is just hailed as this poet, a lot of really sloppy lyrics, if you ask me, you know.
Yeah, especially because that's really all he has to go on. He's less of a vocalist than Dylan. A lot of his albums, he's just kind of talking, or he's, you know, it really is about the lyrics.
So why is he on your list? People might be saying, well, he has put out a lot of brilliant stuff. I mean, the whole Velvet Underground run, essential.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at least the Velvet Underground's albums that have Lou Reed on
right.
them. They put out one. They put out one later without Lou Reed.
Up to Squeeze, right? Isn't that the
right?
Yeah.
Have you listened to that? I've never listened.
Yeah,
to
I did actually, because when we were talking about Squeeze, because that's where they got their name, and I thought, I never really listened to it before, and it's not terrible, but it's just like it shouldn't be in their catalog. You know, it shouldn't be considered a Velvet Underground album.
The Transformer album is hailed for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's brilliant stuff on there, but that wasn't his first solo record. He put out an album before that, self-titled, in '72, which is kind of this redheaded stepchild. This guy, he's got all these heavy-hitting music, like all these prog musicians playing on it. Like Rick Wakeman plays on that album, and have you ever listened to that record?
Rick Wakeman also played on Bowie, you know, played on Hunky Dory, and he did a lot of sessions. And no, I've never listened to that album. Honestly, I've tried to listen to like Berlin. The one that I've really tried to listen to the most, and it's actually a 1982 album, is The Blue Mask, because it's always like a 5-star album or considered, you know, this comeback. And Robert Quine plays on it, and I love him, but I just have never been able to even get through the whole album.
You know, I've had Berlin in my collection for a while, and there's some cool stuff on there for sure. I think his greatest solo album was later in his career, 1989. He put out an album called New York, which is brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, great from start to finish.
Yes.
And I remember listening to that a lot at the time.
Mm-hmm. I was really into that album when it came out. Yeah.
And then his follow-up album comes out, and I bought it new, called Magic and Lost. And I was like, no, it just wasn't making it.
Yeah. Have you listened to Songs for Drella?
No.
Okay, because that's the one he did with John Cale about Andy Warhol. That one I think is interesting.
I think John Cale's solo career is way more interesting to me than Lou Reed's.
For sure. I love John Cale's solo. A lot of his solo albums, not all of them, but a lot of them. I just have not been able to get into Lou Reed's albums and even songs. A lot of these people we're talking about, even if I haven't really listened to their whole albums, there's songs I know or songs I like. But aside from the Velvet Underground, that's a whole other category to me. I don't consider that the same as Lou Reed's solo stuff. New York is the only album of his that I think is great.
All right. So going to skip to the end here. The Verve. Now, they had Bittersweet Symphony, which was a massive hit for them, and deservedly so. One of the greatest songs of it's kind of like the tail end of the Britpop era.
Yeah.
It's almost like a hymn. It's like, this is the end for the Brit, but the whole album's good. They put out 4 records. They're all worthwhile. And then the last artist on here, Cheryl, her other track is coming from them. Now, we've already picked one song. Their album from 1976 was Cheryl's album of that year, Jailbreak. And did she pick the hit song that everybody knows and loves? No. Did she pick the title track that's a classic on FM radio? No. She picked a deep cut for
Well,
her
I
favorite song.
actually the entire Jailbreak album is amazing from start to finish.
Yes.
So I could have picked any song on that album.
This band is amazing, and I'm falling very hard for Thin Lizzy, and I'm adding them to the list of. I'm going straight to that section when I enter the record store because I'm just loving everything I'm listening to right now.
The dual guitars,
the soulful vocals, tight rhythm section,
the songwriting. I mean, Phil Lynott is basically the Irish Bruce Springsteen. His songwriting is in that same vein of like the storytelling. He's incredible. The musicianship all throughout the different, they had different guitarists coming and going in this band, and they're just incredible. The song that people know, their hit, Boys Are Back in Town. I like that song.
Love it.
But
always have. I remember hearing it as a kid. Always loved it.
And Jailbreak was played on the radio quite a bit too. I guess FM, that wasn't a hit, but it was an FM radio song.
People love to make fun of that song.
Jailbreak or Boys Are Back in Town?
Tonight there's going to be a jailbreak somewhere in the town. Let's see, maybe somewhere near the jail in the town. No.
Is there more than one jail there? Which town are we talking about?
That lyric doesn't bother me in the slightest.
That doesn't bother me either.
Such a killer riff.
Oh, I love it so much. It's the riff, and they do have such killer riffs. The song that I chose, actually, at that time, Gary Moore was in the band, and that dual guitar and like incredible soloing that is just amazing. I mean, these guys are so talented. We've talked about this too. The Live and Dangerous album, one of the greatest live albums ever recorded. They were just such an incredible live band, and they don't get the recognition and acknowledgement that they should, because I imagine that most people only know the Boys Are Back in Town. They have at least 5 great albums.
There were other songs that got FM play, like Dancing in the Moonlight. I remember hearing that on
actually that's a kind of an out of character song for them too. That is a song that you wouldn't probably even know was theirs. And Whiskey in the Jar was pretty popular.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
I never really listened to that song all that closely, and I put on the headphones and gave that a deep listen, and I just love it. But where's the bass? There's no bass on that song at all.
Yeah.
It's just practically inaudible. But the funny thing about Thin Lizzy, we talk about how tight they are. As a live band, they were just unparalleled.
Yeah.
You had the 2 excellent lead guitarists trading solos and playing harmonically and playing in unison a lot.
Yes.
And then Brian Downey's an excellent drummer. And Phil Lynott is a bass-playing lead singer. We know that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And apparently he was learning the bass. I mean, he just learned on the fly. He didn't really know how to play bass at all when they first started.
Yeah.
So maybe they mixed him way down on those early records.
Yeah, because that's one of the early albums.
Yeah, that was their first hit, but I think it was their third. I want to say it was their third album, and it was a hit in the UK, not in the United States. For some reason, I thought that was a top 40 scraping song in the United States, but no, just in the UK. But what a cool song. He's such a great storyteller.
Yes, he really is. I think that his songwriting, that's what doesn't get the recognition to me, because I think a lot of people might think of them as just kind of a straight ahead rock band. They don't really pay that much attention to the storytelling aspect of his songwriting, which is really deep and pretty incredible.
Yeah, you compare him to Springsteen. He's lyrically and vocally, he's kind of in the vein of Bruce or like Bob Seger, where that real soulfulness, there's that Celtic soul aspect. He's an Irishman, black Irishman, unusual looking guy. He looks otherworldly. He looks like, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, the alien rock. He looks like he came from another planet. Or he looks like somebody a comic book artist drew up.
Yes. Yes.
But he's so interesting. I mean, his lyrics are passionate and soulful and romantic. You listen to him interviewed. He's just a really interesting guy. And it's just sad the troubles he had with alcohol and drugs. Really sad.
It is.
But you mentioned Gary Moore, and I have this single disc greatest hits of Thin Lizzy I've been spinning a couple of times lately. And it starts off with Whiskey in the Jar. It's chronological, so it starts there. It doesn't have anything off their first two records. And then it goes from Whiskey in the Jar to a song called The Rocker, which is, these guys could bring the thunder with anybody. I mean, toward the end, they were full on metal. I mean, Thunder and Lightning off the last album, that's straight metal, baby. I mean, that is, especially the live version off their last live album.
Mm-hmm.
And the last live record's a little hard to listen to because you hear Phil and he's diminished clearly from his substance abuse. But the band is still bringing it. I mean, Robbo's left the band. It's just got, Brian Robertson, Scott Gorham were the two guitarists. Interestingly, one Irishman, one American.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Gorham, the American, stayed in the group. Brian Robertson left. But they got Snowy White in, and then Gary Moore toward the end was playing with them again. He was with them briefly in the early 70s before they had their big breakthrough in the United States.
Yeah.
And then toward the end, he came back and was playing with them again. But then again, in the 80s, they're going for more of a metal sound. And it is, I mean, it's right up there with Priest and Sabbath, the stuff we put on the playlist from 1980. It fits right in with that. I mean, they're right there.
Which is
good stuff.
Which is interesting because Phil Lynott had two solo albums that came out in 80 and 82, I think. And they're not rocking at all. Like they're much more, even like in the synth vein, like they're more modern sounding from that time.
So that's our one-hit wonder artists. The two that I'm really pounding right now and looking for are Mott the Hoople and Thin Lizzy. I'm just really into the early 70s rock stuff. I just love the sound of music that was coming out early part of the 70s, the heavier rock stuff.
See, I'm more of an 80s
all right,
girl.
So, yeah, no, I'm 70s all the way. 70s all the way. Okay, so we're going to pick my favorite album here. We're not going to talk about it too much because we've already picked two songs from this band, including a song off this record for our playlist for 1982. That song was Cheryl's choice, Save It for Later. The band is English Beat. Their third album, Special Beat Service, came out in 1982. I've had Special Beat Service in my CD collection for quite a long time and just never listened to it a lot. And then I went back and listened to it again as we're doing 1982. And it's just like the wool pulled out from in front of my eyes. It's an incredible record. It really is. These guys are brilliant musicians. It's incredibly well produced, very sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
And, they came out of the two-tone ska revival, but there's so much more than that. I mean, there's just so many different influences going into their sound. They can play seemingly anything with ease. And the songs that I thought were too light, like something like I Confess would have been a perfect example. That's a brilliant song.
That's one
really
of my
great.
favorite songs.
Oh, it's great. It's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Wakeling is such a good singer.
Yes.
He's got this incredible range. I mean, his normal singing voice is kind of in a lower register, but he slides up into that high note just immaculately.
He does.
On that song. And he's a great lyricist. Just the whole band is fantastic. I mean, when you talk about great drummers, how come Everett Morton's name never comes up?
I didn't even know that was his name.
I know, he's fantastic.
He's great.
Yeah. They all are. They all are. They're great musicians.
Yeah.
And they did a live set at US Festival where they played a lot of songs off that record. It's all on YouTube.
They were the only band that played both in 82 and in 83.
Oh, is that right? Okay. The sound isn't as good as you want it to be. I mean, the bottom end's kind of lacking on it, but man, they could pull it off live. Dave Wakeling, what great hair he had. He had his haircut. It's like, what, 82, 83?
Yeah.
If you were walking around with that now, you'd look at him and go, oh, man, that guy's got great hair. How many pictures of people from then would you say that, oh, what great hair?
Rarely would that happen, yes.
It's a really good-looking man, Dave Wakeling.
Yeah.
And then, what kind of struck me about them, too? We've talked about the Specials and how their concerts were very rough and violent.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of aggro. English Beat, everything just seems positive and upbeat and friendly and smiley and just fun. Great melodies.
Yeah.
Lyrics that get right to the heart. And the whole record, start to finish, is just fabulous.
And I think the melodies is really what does set them apart because even on their early material, they weren't on two tone. I think they had one single and that was it on two tone, but they came from that ska revival. And their first album, I Just Can't Stop It, definitely is in that vein, but they've always had a poppiness to them and they've always had that melodic sense that kind of set them apart. And we already talked a little bit about how their second album is just kind of lost in the ether and we never really have listened to it or paid any
Yeah,
attention to it.
I still haven't listened to it.
I've tried to before, but it just has never stood out to me in any way. But Special Beat Service I've had in my life for a long time and have loved it from when I was in high school, mainly because Save It for Later, is the reason why I bought the album, but it quickly became one of my favorite albums. And I think that it is one of those that every song is great, but they do different styles. They still have some ska songs on here. They've got the full, just straight ahead pop songs. I Confess kind of has this like calypso sort of feel to it. And I think it just shows the depth and range of the band.
Yeah. Motown also a big influence on their sound for sure. Soul Salvation, that's definitely got a Motown feel to it.
Yeah, well, and they had Tears of a Clown was big on their first album.
One of the greatest Motown songs ever recorded.
And they do a really cool version of it.
Yep. It's not better than Smokey's version, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
This album I really enjoy because of all the different styles that it incorporates. And it does have a sophisticatedness about it. This also falls in that category, I think, of like Imperial Bedroom and Day and Night. And, there's a handful of albums that came out this year in 1982 that have this sort of sophisticated feel to them. And this is one of them.
Well, we should mention the producer of the record, Bob Sargent, also produced the Haircut 100 album, Pelican West.
Yes.
And that's got a lot of that same sophisticated sound. There's a stamp of quality. These records sound great. Both of them sound fantastic. Really good recordings. He was a staff producer at Abbey Road and a musician himself, played on a lot of the records that he produced. That's one of the cool aspects of this record, too, is all these different instrumentation that they use. I mean, mandolins, accordions, violins. Bob Sargent plays a marimba on the record. There's just all these flavors brought into the mix. But I think if I were to choose one song, and it's tough, but I'm going to go with a song that I liked. Probably my favorite song off the record back in the day is still my favorite. And it's one that sounds like it could have come off I Just Can't Stop It. And that's Sugar and Stress, which is toward the end of the record. But that's got that same energetic ska feel as a lot of the stuff on their first album.
And it has a poppiness to it too, though. And it is very melodic and like just super high energy, danceable. Yeah, I love that song. All the S songs are really good on this album. Soul Salvation, Save It for Later, She's Going, and Sugar and Stress are probably 4 of my favorite songs on this album.
And I'm Sorry is a good one too. There's another S.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
But I think I would probably go with I Confess.
Yeah. Rotating Head. I mean, there's just not every track on here.
Every track is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it has Save It for Later, which is their most well-known song and one of their best as well.
So Save It for Later will be on the main playlist, and I'm going to put Sugar and Stress on the alternate playlist, which I'm cultivating on Apple Music. Our final order of business is Cheryl adding a song to the main playlist today. And we had talked about getting a couple of scientists on the show to discuss this song, but
yes,
it's Thomas Dolby making his second appearance on the playlist with his solo smash, She Blinded Me with Science.
What was his first appearance?
Well, he played synthesizers on Foreigner 4.
Oh, on Foreigner 4. That's right. I forgot that was on our playlist. I knew he did that, but I just wasn't making the connection that was on our playlist. Yes. Thomas Dolby. Oh, yes. Such an interesting little man.
Is he a little man?
He seems like he is.
How tall is he?
He looks like I haven't looked that up actually, but in the video for She Blinded Me with Science, he looks like a smaller guy.
If you've been following our playlist, you've probably noticed me mentioning people's heights before. I'm fascinated by it. I look up the heights of celebrities.
I do too.
Some of my favorite artists are tall people. I'm a tall person. Robin Hitchcock is tall. Amy Mann is like 5'10".
Is she?
Oh yeah.
That's how tall I am. And I've been in an elevator with her, and I don't remember her being
You're
that tall.
5'10"? I
Yeah.
didn't realize you were that tall.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, let's see. How tall is Thomas Dolby? Because now I'm curious. He's 5'6".
Oh,
See?
you nailed it.
Yeah. He's such an interesting guy. And I actually read his autobiography, which it's quite good, the first half. The second half I got bored of it, and I actually kind of just stopped reading it because,
Are you saying he got boring after he got famous?
well, then he started working in Silicon Valley doing all kinds of things with computers and software. And he goes into a lot of detail with that, and I just, like, when that stuff comes up, I just glaze over. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about
He
that, and
came
I'm
he
not
came from an
interested.
academic
He
family. I
came from
think
an academic
his
family, a
yeah.
family of professors, teachers, which, his parents certainly thought he was going to go into that profession too. Very intelligent guy. But he knew from early on that he wanted to be a musician. And he really is kind of the epitome of a DIY musician, because early on, the first few synthesizers that he used, he basically found in like a dumpster and built and like soldered, together, and kind of like rebuilt himself. So he was doing this kind of stuff before synthesizers were actually even affordable, like we've talked about a lot. So he left home when he was like 16, was living in London, and he's a tinkerer, so he's tinkering with electronics, and then eventually with making his own music with these electronics. And he was a huge music fan. He'd go see every show that came to town, like Talking Heads and Television, and he was really into the early XTC, which is how he got connected with Andy Partridge.
He was not known as Thomas Dolby at this point.
Yeah, he was, but that was a stage name. His actual name is Thomas Robertson,
Yeah.
and he changed his name. People in school used to call him Dolby because he was a boffin, a
He was
computer
a
tinkerer,
boffin.
and Dolby surround sound. So that nickname was kind of given to him. And actually, when She Blinded Me with Science became big, the Dolby family actually sued him. And it turns out what they settled on was that he can't release any electronics under his name, but they allowed him to keep his name.
And that's not a hollow promise. He definitely could be doing that.
Exactly. I know.
Right.
So the first band that he was in was Bruce Woolley and the Camera Club, which we've talked about them before, because Bruce Woolley wrote Video Killed the Radio Star with Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes of the Buggles. He's in the band that records their version of Video Killed the Radio Star, which was not a hit. Of course, the Buggles version did become a number one hit. Thomas Dolby seems like he's one of those artists that accidentally became a session musician. Somehow, Mutt Lange got the recordings of the demos he recorded and wanted him to come in and put down the synth tracks on Foreigner 4. And the most well-known was Waiting for a Girl Like You.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. He was pretty much just like busking, and he'd worked with Bruce Woolley, but they never had a hit, or never, went very far. They were opening up for Lena Levitch in the States, and he actually ended up joining her band, and he wrote their hit, New Toy, that he actually wrote about the Fairlight synthesizer that he had just bought for $30,000. He bought one of the first Fairlight synthesizers made, like the fourth one made or something. It was $30,000. And he also bought a house that year for $24,000. So they basically cost as much as a house.
I think the Fairlight is only just starting to show up on our playlist. I want to say that it was used on Dirty Laundry, that Steve Porcaro was messing around with one. Yeah.
And Trevor Horn is really well known for using the Fairlight.
Right. He didn't quite crack our list with ABC, but
yeah, with ABC, that's where but this is around the time he starts using the Fairlight.
Video Killed the Radio Star obviously is on our playlist, but the Fairlight wasn't around yet.
No. And actually, I find that Thomas Dolby has a lot in common with Trevor Horn. They sort of ran parallel paths because of their connection with Bruce Woolley and Video Killed the Radio Star. But Trevor Horn from the Buggles, who went on to produce massive albums like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Yes 90125, and really went like the popular route. Thomas Dolby took more of the nerdy scientist working in his basement, tinkering alone. So after he made the money off of the Foreigner 4 session, he decided to record his own album. And he basically did it all himself with his synthesizers and computers that he built. And then at that time, he was using like a Mini Moog and other synthesizers. So he records the golden age of wireless, and it does have a couple songs that were just scraping the top 40 in the UK, but nothing that was popular in the US. You know, the record label was a little bit disappointed. He was on EMI just like Duran Duran and other bands of that era that were selling millions of copies of albums, and he wasn't one of those. So at this point, he'd already released his album, and he has an idea for this song, She Blinded Me with Science, which is one of the only songs, at least that I know about, that was actually written with the video in mind before the song was written. So he had storyboarded this whole idea of the video and built that idea into a song. It's a totally iconic song from the 80s that everybody knows. And a lot of people, especially in the States, it's the only Thomas Dolby song that they know. And he would definitely be considered a one-hit wonder in the US.
See, again, I thought he had another hit, but apparently not. Hyperactive off the next record.
Hyperactive was a hit in the UK. So actually, She Blinded Me with Science was a number 5 in the US. It didn't chart as high in the UK, but Hyperactive was in the top 20 in the UK, but it didn't chart in the US.
That video got played a lot on MTV.
It was kind of a cutting edge video. Yeah. And, you know, he was always really interested in technology. So I think that the video was more popular than the song.
Apparently so.
And coming up at the time of MTV, when MTV is just amping up, She Blinded Me with Science is definitely another one of those songs that had a lot of help from MTV to push it up the charts. It's kind of easy to think of this as just sort of a goofy, almost novelty song. And mostly, I think, because of Magnus Pyke, who is the actual scientist.
Science! She blinded me. It was science.
He was a scientist that did a lot of TV, you know, on the BBC. So he was kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guy. So he was a very familiar figure in the UK, but he was actually a scientist. Thomas Dolby had a list of people he could hire. So he hires him and he asks him, what do you want me to say? And Thomas Dolby's like, well, just kind of say science a few times. So he says it. And then he says, so now, you know, I want you to say She Blinded Me with Science. And so he says it. She blinded me with science. And he's like, no, that sounds more like a question. This is a statement. And so Magnus Pyke's response was, yes, but as a known scientist, it would be a bit surprising if the girl blinded me with science. Really, I think those little bits of the song, they're quirky, they're funny, and they really do add a lot to it.
Sure.
It's funny too, because he says that he ran into Magnus Pyke years later and he had just done an educational tour of the US. And he was like, hey, how did that go? And he said, oh, it was terrible. People kept coming up behind me on the streets and yelling science, and it scared the crap out of me. and this song has made me more popular than I ever was as a scientist, you know? So he felt like it overshadowed his career basically as a scientist. But it is probably the most recognizable thing about this song and that everybody remembers. The whole song is just only a synthesizer and his vocals and that funky bass track. It's got a very cool groove.
Oh, it's a groovy song. Yeah. I love the middle 8. I don't believe it. Here she comes again. She's tied it up and I can't find anything. All my tubes and wires and careful notes and antiquated notions. I just love that. It's so good.
Yeah. I can see how this song was written as like a little mini movie because it does tell a story and the video very much follows that story. When they were filming the video, the director that directed Billie Jean, Thomas Dolby was working with his company and Michael Jackson was there at the same time and he met him and Michael Jackson was like, oh, I thought you were black. Because they were playing the song on urban radio.
Well, and a couple albums later, he put out a straight funk record, too. It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah. And he really doesn't have that many albums. The Flat Earth came out after this one in 84, and then Aliens Ate My Buick was like 88. And then he put out a few just independent albums after that.
Aliens Ate My Buick got a lot of play at Silver Platters when we were working there.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think that Thomas Dolby could probably be on that list of the one hit wonders too, because the album, The Golden Age of Wireless, it's kind of an album that grew on me. When I first started listening to it when we went into 1982, I was not really sure if I liked it because it feels kind of amateurish in a way, but it's also really well done and well produced. I've been listening to it a lot lately and I love it. I think it's great. Like, I think it could be up there with Haircut 100 and Dexy, as one of those albums that kind of sneaks up on you, and it's all really good.
Yeah, I've got his first three on CD. The one I've listened to most is the Aliens Ate My Buick, but it's one that I need to go back and explore a little more. I think I listened to it once early because it was fairly early in the year 82 when it came out, and probably one of those I put on at night and drifted off to sleep after about 2 or 3 tracks.
Yeah, you need to give it more time.
Yeah.
It actually is pretty deep. It's pretty varied, surprisingly. And initially, She Blinded Me with Science was not on the album. That was a single that he released after the album came out.
It was on an EP.
Yeah, there was a 5-song EP. But then they ended up repackaging the album with She Blinded Me with Science and the B-side.
If you're collecting Dolby, it's a little bit of a challenge. I think there's 5 different versions of the Golden Age of Wireless album where they've got, this one has the longer version of this song and the shorter version of that one, and this version of this and this, or we took these 2 songs off, put this one. I mean, there's like 5 different versions of it.
And it's one of those examples, like there's several from the early 80s like this, where once the single became popular, they start repackaging the album with the single on it. Duran Duran's another example of that. Yeah. But the songs that they added, like One of Our Submarines, I think is a great song too. And I think what they ended up taking off were his 2 early songs, Urges and one other one that were his first 2 singles.
Leipzig.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think it's a really great album. I just started listening to The Flat Earth, which came out in 84. Also really enjoying that too. So I think that his albums deserve a deeper listen. He actually did a lot with other artists too.
He produced a Joni Mitchell album.
He produced Doggy Dog. He plays on Pyromania, which is the Mutt Lange connection.
I just read that today. I didn't know that. But why wouldn't Mutt Lange want him to use him again after? I mean, his work on Foreigner 4 was brilliant.
I know. He did the soundtrack for Howard the Duck. He also produced Prefab Sprout, Steve McQueen, and Jordan the Comeback. One last thing I will say about Thomas Dolby that I thought was kind of interesting is he reminds me of Pete Townsend, actually, and how Pete was like so in the studio, in his head, into synthesizers, into technology as a cerebral sort of musician like that. And they've both written autobiographies, they've both written novels, or like a Todd Rundgren. Todd Rundgren's kind of in that same camp where he was very cutting edge with, video, especially, but also in the synthesizers and creating a full multimedia experience. That's really where Thomas Dolby's works as an artist. But he didn't have the whole thing going for him like Duran Duran. He would go into EMI and start nitpicking all these things about marketing and what's going on with my single, and they started to get really irritated with him because he started to learn, because he'd run into Simon Le Bon and John Taylor, and he started to realize that the whole thing functions a lot better if you are somebody who is craving attention, wants to make the ladies swoon and the guys jealous like Duran Duran. Then the record labels will be happy with you. He was kind of one of those people that just came in and they would just like go, great, Dolby's here, Which is why he veered away from that and really left the music business and just started doing his own thing in the computer world. Interesting guy.
Yep. Definitely an iconic song from the early 80s MTV era and a worthy addition to our 1982 playlist. My album pick for 1982, English Beats Special Beats Service. We've already got a song from that record on our playlist. Save it for later. I'm adding Sugar and Stress to our alternate playlist on Apple Music. And we also discussed one-hit wonder acts from our playlist era, 1972 to 1999, and we selected 4 songs from them. Cheryl chose Thin Lizzy's Black Rose and Narcolepsy by Ben Folds 5. My choices, Mott the Hooples, I Wish I Was Your Mother, and Dexy's Midnight Runners with Gino. I got work to do on our next episode. I got 2 more songs to add to the playlist, my final 2. That's coming up next time we get together. But until then, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
And we'll chat with you next time. Take care, everybody.